In our world today, we see systems of oppression at work on every level. Roots ConnectED believes that the best way to address these systems of oppression, both in schools and in society at large, is to start at the root. We look to target biased attitudes before they give way to acts of bias and discrimination, through curriculum, classroom practices, and deep community building with all stakeholders in the school community. The goal is to identify and then dismantle the thinking and ideology that contributes to harmful acts of oppression, making anti-bias education a means for transforming communities. But what is anti-bias education, and how do we implement it? In the context of a school, anti-bias education is more than a mere addition to an existing curriculum. It is an underpinning perspective and framework that permeates everything, including your interactions with children, families, and colleagues. Our work is holistic. It does not happen in one lesson or one day, but it is integrated throughout the curriculum and school environment. Anti-bias education, as we see it, calls for a dual process for change. While educators engage in the ongoing work of understanding their own biases, power, and positionality to effect a personal transformation, they are also committed to and affected by a collective transformation, taking place at the level of the institution. Anti-bias education is ultimately a path towards transforming our society into a more just, equitable, and connected one. Roots ConnectED has worked to deepen the definition of anti-bias education and to create a framework that encompasses what it looks like in schools. At the center of anti-bias education are inclusion and the studying and sharing of identity. Everything we do is based on these two fundamental beliefs. Individuals in school communities must have a deep and evolving understanding of their intersecting identifiers, must be able to recognize their personal biases and prejudices, as well as their power and positionality. Spaces must be created that foster a sense of belonging and allow students who enter to bring their authentic selves. Children thrive knowing that they will be recognized and affirmed for doing so. Centering identity work connects students to the curriculum in deep and meaningful ways. With identity and inclusion always at the center of anti-bias education, we can look towards various tools for helping us to implement anti-bias education in schools. What does community building look like in the context of anti-bias education? Community building is closely tied to the ongoing identity work being carried out by adults and children alike in a school setting. Community building involves creating brave spaces where children can take part in storytelling and forge connections across lines of difference. In a classroom where meaningful community building is taking place, students demonstrate self-awareness, confidence, family pride, and positive social identities. They recognize the value of honoring others' stories and perspectives. Teachers are intentional about setting norms that cultivate a safe and brave environment for open conversations. In action, community building could look like a teacher guiding 8th graders in working together to set clear and thoughtful classroom norms that guide their work. The norms that they set make space for them to be vulnerable in sharing their experiences and talking about their biases. As part of the community building process, students explore the tension between how they view themselves and how others view them, and how that tension impacts their experiences. Through genuine sharing and introspection, their community building work allows them to tap into experiences other than their own, and to practice honoring others' stories. Anti-bias education involves actively creating opportunities to learn from those who identify in a variety of ways. We listen to their perspectives and experiences with the aim of building understanding and connection, informing and widening our own perspectives. We are ever mindful of the fact that we don't rest any group's experience or perspective on one single person. Instead, we seek to understand an experience from multiple perspectives. Through representation, teachers aim to build empathy in their students, who, when exposed to multiple perspectives and stories, will express comfort and joy with human diversity, use accurate language for human differences, and form deep, caring connections across all dimensions of human diversity. In action, representation could look like 3rd graders learning about Native people, During the course of the unit, teachers work to move beyond a tourist curriculum and spend time unpacking images and understanding how they tell a narrative of Indigenous people throughout history and in the present day. They avoid reducing an entire group to a single story by finding and listening to multiple perspectives and considering the nuances and intersectionality within communities. Children build empathy for the people around them when they are given an opportunity to understand their stories and experiences, and children feel empowered to bring their full, authentic selves into the classroom when they see themselves represented in the curriculum. Critical literacy in the classroom begins with teachers interrogating their own implicit biases and considering power, positionality, and perspective in reading the world around them. Teachers will foster in each student the capacity to critically identify bias in classroom texts and other resources by giving students the tools to question what they read, see, and hear. Through critical literacy, students recognize injustice and have language to describe what injustice looks like and the impact it has on people. In turn, students learn to look for power, positionality, and perspective in the texts that they read. In action, this could look like second-grade students analyzing and challenging stereotypes in fairy tales. Second graders read texts and ask questions like, "Who is represented in this story?" or "Who is missing from this story?" When young children are given language to question norms and understand the generalizations they see being made about various groups of people, they begin to push back on those generalizations in the classroom and in their social worlds as well. They are able to deconstruct unjust ideas and begin to reconstruct the world they want to see. When children are given the tools to think critically about their surroundings, they are able to dispute systems of power that are oppressive. Critical literacy encourages reflection, transformation, and action in children as they eagerly work to promote a more just and equitable world. A core goal of anti-bias education is to empower children to become active agents of change. To realize that their actions, big or small, have the power to transform interactions as well as systems and structures. Through anti-bias education, teachers expose students to various forms of action and cultivate each student's ability to stand up for oneself and for others in the face of bias and injustice. Through learning about social action, students understand that they can stand up against discriminatory words or actions in a variety of ways to make a change. In action, this could look like a kindergarten class inviting each student's family into the room to share about themselves. Kindergartners build connections through direct experiences, learning about each other's families, and seeing how each family answers the same questions. Students are struck by the way that the families they see represented in the TV shows they watch don't match the diversity of the families in their lives, and they write letters to large TV networks to ask for more diversity and inclusion in TV. Children have an innate desire to create positive change in their communities and in the world at large. They have a keen sense of justice and want for things around them to be just and fair. As educators, we must nurture that inclination in children by allowing them to take part in actions small or large that lead to transformation. Through the lens of universal design for learning, educators will cultivate each student's understanding of themselves as learners by creating choice and access throughout the curriculum and in the physical space of the classroom. Through UDL, students understand that each person learns in different ways, and they're able to make informed choices for their learning and social-emotional development. At best, UDL allows students to make a plan for their learning, because the goal of their work is clear, and they have the means to achieve that goal. Through UDL, students see themselves as members of an interdependent community. We want students to see their success and liberation as tied to their peers, not in competition with them. In action, UDL might look like fifth graders studying current events. They use the space to discuss things that they're seeing, experiencing, or hearing about in the world around them. Students preview the topics available to them, and knowing that they will be studying the topic they choose for a certain amount of time, they think about what they need, given how they are feeling and experiencing everything going on around them. Being able to preview and being given context allows students to make an informed decision about what topic to focus on and generates higher engagement. Students practice a certain set of skills over multiple days that will help them to read media critically, and they do so by reading about a topic that interests them. If children cannot access curriculum, it does not matter how well thought out it may be, it will not serve them. Implementing universal design for learning informs how students are grouped, options for learning, and developing empathy for others. It helps to ensure our classrooms are safe spaces for kids to take risks, academically and socially, when we subscribe to the belief that there is no average. Access to learning ceases to be a barrier to understanding, growth, and building community. Anti-bias education at Roots Connected is centered in identity and inclusion. It is through the tools of critical literacy, UDL, social action, representation, and community building that we work towards our desired outcome of personal and collective transformation. We witness this dual transformation through a shift in culture and attitudes, as well as a shift in the work around curriculum, instruction, and professional development being done in school communities. By implementing an anti-bias framework in our school communities, we promote a deeper understanding in children of both the joy and the pain that exist in our world, and we provide students with strategies and tools for transforming our society into a more just, equitable, and connected one.